Once again check the condition. So here also I am going to have the two part, that is true part and false part. The number greater than or equal to 50 and less than 60, then it is D grade. The C# switch statement executes one statement from multiple conditions. Hello to all, a warm welcome to my new session on Introduction to .NET Programming. I am Revati from the Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. So dear student, before going to start my today's session, let me to recall the topic which I have discussed in my last session. So dear student, in my last session, I started with C# operators. So what is operator here? That is nothing but the symbols. And when I consider C# operators, I discussed bitwise operator, logical operator, relational operator, etc. Along with that, arithmetic operators, etc. Along with that, I have discussed decision making in C#. That means how to make a decision for a particular scenario or for a particular situation. In that, we have two different types of decision making, that is selection along with that iteration. Under selection, I discussed C# if statement along with the syntax as well as flowchart as well as example program. So here C# if statement is called simple if statement or one-way branching. Then I have discussed C# if else statement. So dear student, it is called two-way branching. Along with that, I have discussed syntax, example as well as flowchart. So dear student, these are the certain topic I have discussed in my last session. But in my today's session, I am going to deal with C#, if else, if ladder statement, along with that C# switch statement. So dear student, at the beginning, I am going to have if else, if ladder. That means inside one if statement, I can able to have another if statement, and it is known as if else if ladder, and it's also called by the name multi-way branching. So dear student, the C# if else if ladder statement executes one condition from multiple statement. So here I am going to have the one condition, and if that condition is true, it's going to execute multiple statement. Now let me to consider the syntax here. So dear student, at the beginning I am going to have the if condition. Okay, if this condition is true, I'm going to have this set of statement. Now, if this condition is false, then in my else part, once again I'm going to check the condition. So in the else part, once again I'm going to check the condition, and if this condition is true, execute this statement, and if this condition is false, go to else part. In my else part, once again I am going to check the condition. So dear student, if I consider simple if-else statement, I have if, then I have condition, then I'm going to have set of statement. Now, I'm going to write the else part. In that also, I'm going to have set of executable statement. So dear student, please recall the execution procedure here, that if this condition is true, execute these many statements. Else, execute else part. That means if this condition is false, then execute else part. If I consider false statement, then in my else part, I'm going to write the condition once again. So here I'll write the if, then condition. Okay, if this condition is true, once again I'm going to have the two possibility, that is true part as well as false part. So this is the syntax. So I'm going to have the condition. If this is true, then execute set of statements. Else, once again check the condition. So here also I'm going to have the two part, that is true part and false part, and it's going to continue. Now, dear student, I'm going to have the flow chart. That means how the control flows from top to bottom. So here I have the condition. That means at the beginning I'm going to write the condition. If this condition is true, I'm going to have set of statement and I'm not going to execute rest of the statement. So if the first condition is true, whatever the answer I'm going to get, that is my final answer, because I'm not going to touch rest of the part. If this condition is false, what I want to do? I want to check the condition once again. So I'm going to write the condition. If this condition is true, I'm going to execute the set of statement. So here I'll stop my execution. If this condition is true, okay, I'm going to execute the statement. Okay, then I'm not going to touch remaining part. If this condition is false, once again I'm going to have the condition. If this condition is true, execute the statement else. Else, execute rest of the statement. So if this condition is true, execute this statement. Else, execute rest of the statement. So this is the way C#, if, else, if ladder statement is going to work. And the working procedure of C program if, else, if ladder is similar to C#, if, else, if ladder statement. Now I'm going to have the example here. So dear student, now I'm going to have the example here. Before that, let me to consider simple example, that I'm going to consider student marks. So dear student, I'm going to have the example program. Before going to explain example program, let me to consider simple example here. That is, I'm going to have the marks. I'm going to have the marks and I have certain possibility. If I consider the marks, I have certain possibility. And what are the possibility I'm going to have? I'm going to have distinction, first class, second class, just pass and fail. So I'm going to have 5 possibility. For example, if marks greater than or equal to 85, then it is distinction. If the marks less than 60, that is less than or equal to 60 and greater than or equal to 85, then it is first class. Then the next condition, below 60, it is second class. Above 35, then it is just pass. Below 35, then it is fail. So I have certain possibility. To check all this possibility, I'm going to use if, else, if ladder. So this is the example program I'm going to have. So dear student, if I consider first line, what is my first line? It is using system. Now I'm going to create my own class, and what is the name of the class? That is if example. Inside that, I'm going to write the main program. Now I'm going to read the input. That means I want to read the mark, or I want to read the number in order to check distinction, first class, second class, or just pass or fail. So what I want to do? I want to read the input. To read the input, I'm going to use toInt32, this method, and this method is present in the class convert. So dear student, at the beginning, I'm going to display the message to the user that enter the number. Now, with the help of console.readLine. So dear student, my next line here is, I want to display the message to the user that enter a number. Now, to read the input from the keyboard, I'm going to have readLine method. And this method is present under the class called console. And whatever the input I'm going to read, that is in the form of string, and I want to convert that into integer. So I'm going to use this method. So whatever the input I'm going to read, that is converted into integer, and it's of type integer data type. Now I'm going to check if the red number is less than 0 or number greater than 100, then it is wrong number. So whatever the marks or whatever the number I'm going to enter, okay, that must be above 0 and below 100. If I enter -1, then it is wrong. If I enter 101, it's also wrong. So I'm going to display the message that it is wrong number. Then once again, I'm going to check the condition. So if this condition is true, okay, wrong number. If this condition is false, so the control transferred to else part. If number greater than or equal to 0 and number less than 50, then it is nothing but the fail. So the number must be greater than 50, but here number less than 50 is treated as fail. Now, if the number greater than or equal to 50 and less than 60, then it is degrade. Once again, if this condition is true, okay, execute this statement. If this condition is false, the control transferred to else part. Once again, I'm going to check the condition. And if this condition is true, execute C grade, else. Once again, check the condition. Okay, then display B grade. And if this if statement is false, jump to the else part. Once again, check the condition. And if this condition is true, okay, A grade. Else it is A++ grade. So, within one condition, I'm going to write another condition is called if-else-if ladder. So, this is the example for if-else-if ladder. Now, I'm going to have switch statement. So, the C# switch statement executes one statement from multiple condition. It is like if-else ladder in C#. So, dear student, if I visit restaurant, I'm going to get the menu. In that menu, I'm going to have the list of options and I'm going to select particular item at a time. That is similar to switch statement. That means in switch statement, I'm going to have the expression. Okay, in that I'm going to have the list of option or list of item. In that I'm going to select one item at a time. So dear student, if I consider the syntax, at the beginning I'm going to use the keyword switch. Now I'm going to write the expression here. And if this expression is true, see here, I'm going to have the case value. So I'm going to write case. Here case is keyword and switch is also keyword. So here I'm going to have the case and I'm going to have the label or value. And if this case is satisfied, then it's going to execute the statement. After executing this case, I want to exit from the switch statement. For that, I'm going to use the keyword break. Now, once again, I'm going to have next option, that is case 2. Okay, if this case 2 is satisfied, then it's going to execute set of statement. Then break the case and it's going to continue until I can able to use default statement. That means there are certain time I'm going to select the option which is not present in the switch or which is not present in the menu. In that time, I just want to give some information to the user and where I'm going to write those information in my default statement. Then I'm going to write the keyword break and this is the end of the switch. So dear student, what you want to remember here, that you are going to have the menu and when I click the menu, you're going to get list of option and you're going to select particular option at a time. Similarly, if I consider switch, I'm going to have the expression. Under that, I'm going to have list of case values and I'm going to select particular case value at a time. Now, let me to consider the example here. So, dear student, think that I'm going to create a basic calculator with the option plus, minus, multiplication, division and modulus. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to write the switch statement, switch, and I'm going to write the option. Then open the curly brace. First, I want to provide addition. So, what I will do, I'll write the case. Okay, then in that I'll write plus. Okay, and I'm going to write the function or I'm going to write this statement to perform addition operation. After that, what I will do, I'm going to write the break statement. Now, the next possibility, case minus, okay, now write the statement for the subtraction and break. So, and it's going to continue like that. Okay, suppose if I press exclamatory symbol, what's going to happen? I want to get some message, and where I'm going to write this message in my default part, because here I can able to use only 5 symbols, and if I press exclamatory symbol, then it's not the option. So what I want to do here? I want to give the information. And what information I want to provide here? That is nothing but invalid operator. So this is the way I can able to use switch statement. So here I'm going to have the example. I'm going to create the class called switch example, and I'm going to write the main program. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to read the number. For that, I'm going to have read line method. Okay, and whatever the number I'm going to read, that is the input to the switch statement. So switch, it is number. And I'm going to open the curly brace. Now I'm going to open the curly brace. Now I'm going to have the option. Suppose if I press number 10, then I have case 10. And if it is satisfied, what I want to do? I want to perform certain operation, or I want to execute certain statement. And what statement I'm going to execute? That is, it is 10. After that, I'm going to exit from the switch statement. Once again, what I want to do? I want to read the number. In that time, if I press 30, okay, in my switch statement, I'm going to check switch 30, and where the control transfers, that is case 30. Now I'm going to print it is 30 and break. In the next time, suppose if I press or if I enter 50, now I have switch 50, but this 50 is not present in my case value. So where the control transfers, that is in my default statement. So here I'm going to give the information to the user that whatever the number you pressed, it is wrong option. So not 10, 20 and 30 and break the execution. So this is the way I can able to use switch statements in my program. So dear student, in my today's session, I started with what is if, else, if ladder. Along with that, I have discussed switch statement. But in my next session, I'm going to deal with looping statement or iteration statements in C#. And what are the iteration statements? I'm going to discuss, that is while loop, do while and for loop. So dear student, from the examination point of view, the decision making statements are very, very important, and you can able to expect one sure question under this topic. Anyway, dear student, let's meet in the next session with more information about iterative statement. Until that, keep watching and keep learning. Thank you.